Hunter Biden's federal gun trial resumes Monday after prosecutors rested their case. Biden's lawyers revealing they may call Hunter to the stand after the weekend. This wraps up a week of eye-opening testimony in which prosecutors claim Biden's truck and gun case had remnants of drugs on them. Hunter's daughter Naomi later testified that she did not see any drug paraphernalia in her father's truck. So here to unpack all of it is criminal defense attorney Mark Eiglarsh. Mark, great to have you this morning. Let's start with Hunter testifying. Likelihood?
Yeah, I think that they're definitely considering it, not because they want to, but because they have to. The government has done an amazing job painting him as a drug user and an addict. The only one who can contradict that is him taking the stand and saying, at the time, I wasn't a user. When I got that gun, I wasn't using. At least I looked at it as literally at that moment. And was I an addict? Now I realize I probably was. At the time, I was in deep denial about my addiction, like most addicts can be. And I didn't lie. I wrote down that I wasn't an addict because I didn't think I was.
So how does that work, Mark? We know that ignorance is no defense when it comes to the law. You can't say, I didn't know something was against the law. But on this particular instance, in this particular case, Hunter's attempting to kind of parse the knowledge of being an addict. So if you testify, I'm not an addict, and you believe you're not an addict, but you are an addict, are you safe?
I think you are. I think that jurors who love the Bidens in Delaware are more inclined to believe his testimony that he didn't lie because in his mind, that was his truth. And, you know, addict really is not an objective word. It depends upon what the person feels. There are many people who consider themselves having been addicts, but don't like using that term to describe them. So it is not a very black and white scenario.
I hear you playing criminal defense lawyer, Mark, and just to play devil's advocate with you there for a moment, this idea that Hunter has a truth and you have a truth and I have a truth, I know is very in vogue, but it also defies the very reality that there is an objective truth. And when it comes to objective truth, it seems to be even the truth of the medical community that addict is definable. It isn't something that you personally testify to. You either are or you aren't, and once you are, you always are. It's a diagnostic condition. You're an addict. You don't get to choose all of a sudden to say, you know what, I'm not an addict.
Yeah, you make great points, and I can easily take off my defense attorney hat, put on my former prosecutor hat, and say, you're right, meaning that there is a way to define someone as an addict, and boy, they've done it every single way. The only thing missing was a busload of nuns who actually smoked crack with him. And they've got him.
Sorry, the busload of nuns is the new detail. That was great. Well, we'll see. Well, I fear, as you point out, a jury in Delaware, but also the modern in vogue idea that you are, your truth is somehow valuable when compared to the objective truth, will win the day for Hunter Biden. But let's talk about Jill Biden for just a moment, flying back and forth from France to Hunter's trial. What do you make of that? Leaving the ceremonies in France? She'd already been at Hunter's trial before, considers it important enough to come back. Her presence in that courtroom is quite a statement.
It is, and anyone who says otherwise is being intellectually dishonest. Courtrooms are theater. I've tried cases for 30 years, and it's not just the evidence that jurors are considering. They're looking around, they're getting tells, they're feeling things out that aren't necessarily in evidence. That said, those who are condemning any parents for being in the courtroom when their son is facing time in the pokey are being dishonest. They would be there, too, to support their children.
One last question for you, Mark, in the time I have left. I know this, having grown up in a legal community, and my wife actually serving on a jury. She served on a jury when it came to a case prosecuting a guy who was manufacturing crystal meth. They asked everybody on that jury, had you had an experience with it? And everyone did. Oh, my nephew, my cousin. They were not sympathetic. They threw the book at the defendant within 15 minutes of deliberation. This jury was all asked about their experience with addicts. They all had experience, as many do, with addiction. How do you think that will play for Hunter, that everybody has experience with addiction? More sympathy or more condemnation?
I'm so glad you brought that up. And no one knows the answer to this question because we don't know what their experience with addiction is. Each one carries their own definition of what an addict is, and you just don't know. That's right. The problem. No one knew about NDAs or porn stars or how to manage books in the Trump trial. They had to be told and educated. Here, they know about addiction. So they come in here with their own feelings, their own bias, their own interests, their own definitions,
Right.
and one never knows.
Great stuff, Mark. Thanks for being with us this morning.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.